Please be aware this will be a spoiler-filled discussion. Hello, and welcome to the Minority Arts Appreciation Society, where we're ticking all the boxes and providing the much-needed minority perspective to popular internet discourse. I'm Matty, and I lead the film discussions.
I'm Josh, and as always, I lead the music discussions.
And this week, we are talking about Asif Kapadia's, hope I'm saying that right, debut feature, The Warrior from 2001. This is an older film discussion, coming at you with just, a little innocent, humble little ditty out here. There's no preamble this week. We're just gonna jump right into this. You may know Asif Kapadia's work from his more recent things. I think his most famous work would be the amazing Amy documentary. But like I said, this is his debut feature. And the premise of this film is essentially a warrior played by Irrfan Khan, R.I.P., our recently deceased amazing actor. He renounces his role as a sort of enforcer, a brutal enforcer to a local sort of lord in feudal India, and it's basically about the journey of redemption that he goes on, as well as the physical journey that he goes on to escape from his pursuing men. I feel like I don't start with you very often, Josh. I like to, well, actually, as a very quick preamble, have you seen the Amy documentary?
No, I haven't seen any of Asif's films. I was quite surprised to see that he directed the Amy documentary, and also that he was born in London, and because I had no background of this director. I didn't really know who he was, and this film especially I've never heard of, and it seems very underground in a way. I haven't really seen anyone talk about it. I think partially that might be because it got buried by like two other films of the same title. In the past 15 years alone, not to mention The Warriors, it from the 80s. So it's like the fourth most popular film called Warrior, right?
With warrior as a significant part of the title, yeah.
So it makes sense that it kind of got buried. But yeah, and even more than that, I was super surprised to see Irrfan Khan. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. I'll just call him Khan from now on.
Khan. Sorry, Khan.
Tragically recently died, of course, earlier on this year. And I haven't seen too many of his films where I was super aware of his presence. Like I saw Life of Pi when I was really young. Apparently, he was in the Amazing Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield one.
Huh?
I did not remember that. And of course, we've all seen Slumdog Millionaire, right? Again, I was really young when I watched that too. So it was good to get like a leading man performance from him. Relatively quite early on in his career compared to his kind of booming popularity in the late 2000s. So this was so essentially what I'm saying is I had no idea what this film was before, and then when it started, I was like, oh, people I recognize, and
yeah,
it was exciting. But yeah, it was quite like I guess a left ball, like it.
A curveball.
Yeah, curveball. That's
I the only reason I found out about this film, and kind of the reason we're doing it is because I saw it I read an interview with the director in a book. I have a great book called New British Cinema, which is just a series of interviews with British directors that have been making films recently. And he mentioned this film, and it sounded very grand in scale, and I was very curious as to why it was buried. I think a huge part of this is probably because, and this is a factor of the film that I was pleasantly surprised by, was that the whole thing is in Hindi. Like, there's literally not a line of English, I don't think, which is great. And if you watch the credits, the majority of the production crew were also Indian. I think they were assisted by the Indian Film Institute on this one. But in terms of your thoughts, Josh, how did you feel about this?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the point you raised about it all being in Hindi, is watching the film, it made me think a lot about kind of what John Williams said about scoring Star Wars, like the original trilogy, of course, where he really wanted it to feel completely universal, and you could basically watch it with just the music and really get the story. And I think there's a very similar vibe here. Like, I generally think if there were no subtitles, it would be very hard to get lost in this film because it's very direct visually. Like, you see that he's a man who runs around and kills people in villages. He's got a son. He has the religious epiphany. It's all very clearly presented. It's not like a dialogue-heavy film. But in that way, the film felt really timeless. Actually, it was weird. I felt like it was drawing on a lot of Western influences. Oddly enough, like I really felt like this was a Western. With
so
the whole,
interesting.
man of no name with a dark past, being hunted, and and also it reminded me a lot of like ancient Greek myth, like with what's the name of the blind like character in ancient Greek mythology who knows all, like he sees the future? Tiresias.
Well, I know there's the three women. What are they called? They're not just called the witches.
It's the Greek prophet. It is Tiresias.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like the blind woman played that sort of role of like.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like lots of Western influences, and I couldn't speak to like the Indian kind of cultural influences that went into this because I don't know much about Indian culture, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But despite that, it did feel like a very universal tale.
I think you're so right to bring up the universality of it. In the interview, I'm not just going to spend the whole discussion talking about the interview, but in the interview, he brings up all manner of citations, especially filmographic citations for this film. He brings up Hitchcock, and he brings up some Eastern directors who I frankly never heard of. Just something to delve into, I guess. But in terms of inspiration for the story, the inspiration for the story actually came from a Japanese folktale. And again, this is a spoiler discussion, as you will have heard at the beginning. The scene in which the son refuses to give up his father is directly lifted from this folktale, in which a young boy training to be a samurai was brought before the shogun and shown a severed head and asked if it was his father. The boy knew it was not his father, but to save his father's life, he lied and said it was. To prove it, the boy pulled out his dagger and killed himself. He would rather be dead than live with the shame his father had brought on to the family. And obviously, in this film, the scene is changed so that the sort of arch nemesis of the film kills his son. And but I think that brings up, so luckily, that choice doesn't just bring about dramatic tension for the film. I think it's really important to the themes of justice that take place in the film that are really, really naturally sown throughout the story. So yeah, I really loved this film. I think it was one of the it's a reminder that films aren't about essentially what you're being literally presented. This is a film very literally about the a man on the run element. Very, very huge Logan vibes if we're talking about Western films. I can definitely see Logan having a lot to credit to this film. But what I loved about this was that you had a multifaceted tale about not only redemption but also a sense of justice, because Irrfan Khan's character has done horrible things, and you see him do horrible things. But also in one of the first scenes, before they go to raid a village, you overhear three characters talking about essentially raping women, and one of them says to him, and he intervenes and says, "Just do your orders, just kill the people." which is meant to be some sense of justice, and they say back to him, "Oh, well, you used to do that sort of thing all the time." It brings around questions of to where his son came from as well in the story, and where the son's mother is now. But anyway, it's an incredibly important story, not about redemption, to be honest. I found it more a tale of justice because I don't think this film is trying really to redeem this character. I don't think it's necessarily trying to be all too authentically real either. But yeah, that was my experience with it. I really, really loved this.
Well, I hate to bring this like discussion down to as low brow as possible, but it started off very like God of War PS4, where it's like, yeah, it's going to be this dad teaching his son, how to become a warrior, but maybe because they're in exile, teaching him a new relationship with violence.
Yeah, that's so true.
And then the son died, and it sort of became like The Last of Us. Like, ooh, now it's about like a surrogate child, and now the father will learn to forgive himself through this relationship with the surrogate child. But either way, I mean, even though either way, it definitely is fixated on a very like universal tale of, I guess, spiritual redemption, or some sort of this almost existential idea of you are a thief, you are a murderer, and kind of how much freedom do we have to sort of absolve ourselves of those, I don't know, feeling like you're set in a certain way or doomed to be a certain way because of your past. I guess I feel like I found it quite whimsical and charming.
Yeah,
however,
definitely.
I do think it lacks in confidence a bit, and I think some stuff, like I feel like some characters are a bit thinly characterized, and it felt a bit too broad at points. Like, I would have really loved if his relationship with sort of his rival, who he has a showdown with at the end, was fleshed out more. Because like when that rival came back, I was like, man, I really don't have a great sense of like
what their relationship was.
Yeah, exactly. Like, or it just really sapped that moment of tension for me. I was more concerned. Yeah. So just more confidence in, I guess, building these characters up. They felt it had thin for me.
I do agree with you. I agree with you on a big level. I think one thing I'll say is it never gets bad. Like just in its defense, it never goes to like I was your like junior, and now when you are dead, I will take your place. It never like this is a very mature and collected film. I want to say, I think I really appreciate how efficient it is. It does feel very long to me, and that's not because it's padded or slow. I think it's just because this film very naturally takes its time. Sorry to dart back. Do you want to know something amazing about the thief character?
Sure.
That's just like a legit thief that they found as they were in pre-production for the film, and he has been like he had been on the streets from the age of 7 in India. So it's just this completely organic casting, which is so crazy because I loved that character, and I think I want to kind of talk about why I found this film so thematically satisfying, because I do share your complaints, but I think I really like the journey, the emotional journey that and the moral journey that this character goes on isn't complete in the first act. In the first act, you see him put his blade down and say, I'll never lift a sword again." And what that kind of could lead to in a lesser film is a very simplistic story where you don't actually have any moral resolution by the end, because now all you have left is a sort of tactile and grounded plot of simply escape bad men. I'm not saying it wouldn't be fun, but this is 100% not what this film is going for. But what the thief character brings in, and what the rest of the story develops is that essentially the things that make these people who they are, because these people are very literally defined by the script and in the credits as the warrior and the thief, is that these things that make you who you are can be employed for non-malicious ways. Like, for example, in the last act, you see the thief. Essentially, there's a as they're approaching the end of their journey, after the sort of enemy warrior figure has been killed. Uh, there is a customer at the cafe at the restaurant that they are at who is refusing to pay, and the thief steals from him and gives it to the owners of the restaurant, who are just saying, "Hey man, we're fucking poor, and you ate our food, and you're refusing to pay. Give us your money." And so he gives to them, and in the same way, you see the warrior figure kill, but it's the fact that it's for good, and he has to wrestle with that fact again. That means this film is consistently thematically satisfying, as opposed to just being this interesting journey across feudal India.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like thematically, I do think it's interesting to go for a more grey kind of moral takeaway here, where it's more about how do we ethically reappropriate actions that are typically shameful or immoral, like stealing or murdering. It's not as simple as just like never steal, never murder. You can kind of utilize those facets of your abilities for a greater purpose. I don't know why this film left me so cold. I have like no passion for this. Even though it was more or less, it was good. Like I was fine. I guess I feel like for me, it really peaked at that inciting incident when he was going to kill the young child in the village, and then he was transported to like an icy mountain, and then it flashed back to the war ground and or the village rather, and then he had ice on his like feet. That part was so cool, and I guess I just wish the film delved more into like spiritual surrealism, as opposed to kind of going for a pretty straight story in the end. It kind of, I don't know. I get that this is meant to be like a timeless fairy tale, sort of parable, fable, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't in the mood for that. I don't know. I would have liked if the film was a bit more challenging in its presentation, and in a weird way, yeah, it felt like a kids film in a weird way. Like I don't know. Not in like a patronizing way.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I got anything out of this that I haven't already seen or felt in a film. Even though the performances are all great, especially the leading man. I don't know, it just left me a bit cold.
I think there is something very powerful about seeing stories like this told visually. Especially, I think this film does carry its weight in that regard as well. I think my perspective on stories like this is that, I mean, you do have innovative writers and things like this, but we're at a point where not running out of stories, but it's hard to find new purity, and so I find a real great comfort in going back to these sort of simpler stories and having just the sheer elevation that a visual story brings be the strength of it. I think that there is something so powerful just about seeing the pain of it written across Irrfan Khan's face, and the landscape as well. The landscape is so important to this film, I feel like, because while there's a obviously a very little geographical journey going on, I think there's something so bold about the distinction between the desert and when they were filming at the foot of the Himalayan mountains. I don't know, it's just so evocative, and it just brings it to life so much that I just kind of fell in love a bit. But I do see what you mean. I could see how this could leave you feeling cold.
Yeah, it's weird because I agree. Like, yeah, and also some of my favorite parts were just the huge landscape shots, the whole
Yeah.
epic voyage shots, and especially the still moments of him standing with the mountain in the background. They're really gorgeous. It was nice, but I don't know. I don't know why it didn't connect with me the way it connected with you. I
Yeah.
get. I guess I just wish I was challenged more emotionally, or thrown through more loops, or maybe if this character was made harder to like, or and it was a greater kind of I don't know, it was asking more of me as an audience to like sympathize with this warrior character, or is he worthy of redemption? It seemed very, I don't know, it seemed very cut and dry. It was.
Yeah, you do bring up like some parts of the film that I'm not 100% sold on, because I really love the performance you have here, and I love that you don't have a really verbal journey from Irrfan Khan's character. You really, but and because it's the whole film is very understated, like you said. I think you're so right to bring up John Williams and the score and everything, because a lot of work is being done by the score. I don't think that's a bad thing, and because I really do love the understated performance. It meshes really well with this film. But I wonder if there could have been some more meat on the bones in terms of the script, because I think if we had more of a sense of the emotions he had like before his act of redemption, in not in like in a scene you bring up where he's transported quickly to the mountains and then back again, and then versus his emotions afterwards, I think it could have been just more juicy in that way, because it does happen not quickly, and it's not rushed or anything, but I feel like you're getting a lot of the sentiment and emotion from the thief character, who is 100% a foil, and is brought in by the script for exactly the purpose of bringing out like the emotional change for the audience. But I think I would have liked to see it more from him agently, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of like emotional depth, I think, and this is completely subjective, but I think
Yeah.
personally I would have liked it if this film basically started like half an hour later than the actual start. If it just started with like a very lonely journey with this really sullen guy traveling,
Hmm.
and then our POV character is like the thief, right? And then gradually throughout the film we're revealed like this dark past of this guy, and his death of his son, and this moment he had of the Himalayan mountain vision. And so there's a bit more. I guess I just wish this film had a bit more allure, a bit more luster, a bit more mystery. It felt a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I would have liked that a lot.
I think you've put that really well. I guess. Yeah, I really don't want to overextend this review past its length, because this is a simple film in a story sense. I really, really adore this film's production value and sense of scale. While I was watching it, I very much had the word epic in my mind, of grandeur and moral grandeur as well. But at the same time, it felt very classical and ancient in a way. And I mean, it literally is ancient, but in the sense of it being a story as old as time. I really feel um like a blind woman, a thief, and an old warrior is like the name of one of Aesop's fables. And I really loved that when I had that moment. It was a gorgeous realization of how classical and, yeah, just powerful this story was, and how powerful it was being told. But like I said, I don't want to talk about this for too long, because I feel like rinsing this film is just unfair to it. So yeah, I'll just move on to my recommendation. I'd give this a decent recommend. I think that if Josh's criticisms sound troubling to you, I still give it a try, because it's very visually very much well worth a look. and Irrfan Khan's performance is amazing. And thematically, it's incredibly satisfying. Like, there is very little dead weight in this film that would ever make you regret a viewing time. And I think if you get out of it what I got out of it, you could find something incredibly special. So yeah, I'd give this like a decent recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give this a week not recommend. I just feel like if you do watch this, I think it's a very like nice, pleasant film to have on, and it I think a lot about the phrase like filmic shoegaze, right? And it's one of those films where it's a nice little shower on your eyes of pleasant colors and images. However, I just comparing this to like other films that kind of are about very troubled men who want some sort of redemption, and also involve lots of snow imagery. I didn't find this.
Where are you going with this?
Affecting again. This is a perfect parallel. Like, these are very different films, but I was thinking about films like Beautiful and Old Boy, where by their conclusion, I was completely like racked throughout like my soul, and I was like, yeah, how the hell does someone come back from this experience? Like, how do you whether intentionally or unintentionally feel this much guilt and come back from that? And this film never sold me on the guilt, and that's why it was so hard for me to be moved by this. So I'm going to give this a week, not recommend.
Okay. Awesome. And so what music are we going to be talking about next week, my dude?
Okay. So, yeah, next week, we're last time in the music discussions, we talked about Throbbing Gristle, kind of industrial, minimal synth record. And I thought it would be fun to rewind even a little bit further.
Damn.
To Suicide, their self-titled album, Suicide, another minimal synth record, and another, in my opinion, slightly misleading title.
Ooh.
I don't want to reveal anything about that because I'm interested in what Mattie would have to think of it. This is an album I'd heard before, so I'm excited to talk about it. So yeah, tune in. We're going to be talking about Suicide, self-titled.
Okay, damn.
Next week.
Awesome. The legacy of Mattie having never heard the album before lives on. Alrighty. Thank you very much for listening.
Oh yeah. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also follow us on Instagram if you want updates. We're at Minority Arts Podcast on Instagram. Same for Twitter. Follow our Twitter, man. We want more Twitter followers at Minority Arts Podcast Twitter. And again, we're just updating on when episodes are dropping. So yeah, be sure to hit us up on those and subscribe on whatever like podcast app you're listening on, be it Spotify, Podbean, Buzzsprout, what have you. Yeah,
do it or fucking kill you.
Oh, that's mean.
All right, thanks for listening. Bye.